Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Welcome back. Today we're looking at the KLEIN Tools MM400. Now this is not in the cheapo realm. This is around 68 bucks Canadian, about 55 or so US dollars. So still not in the cheapo zone, but not uber expensive as well. It ships in one of those plastic containers, and what do you get inside? Well, of course, you get your test leads. These are your KLEIN test leads. They do have that KLEIN labeling, and they rated at Cat 2 1000, Cat 3 600 volts. You know what? They feel okay. It's not silicone, but that being said, it's not a bad test lead. As well, you get a thermocouple. It's actually a K-style attachment, and that goes right into the meter itself. We'll take a look at that as well. Finally, with KLEIN, you always get that nice big instruction manual. Nice and verbose, big pictures. Wow, if only all multimeters came with such a nice looking user guide. Very, very well done. Now, something you don't see every day, you get an ETL Intertech rating on the test lead. So these have been tested by a third party and passed. So excellent. Multimeter itself has a really nice feel. That boot is actually embedded into the meter. It cannot come off. It definitely feels rugged. I mean, this thing is built tough. That's the whole idea behind KLEIN, is their instruments are able to get away with a lot of use and abuse and keep on ticking. So honestly, I can say from just first impressions at least, this seems like a well-made meter. Tilt stand is nice and wide. I love these wide tilt stands. It gives a lot of stability when you're one-handing it, and really nicely done. Closes, doesn't do any flapping, nothing funky going on here. Overall, a great design. Well, the ETL rating from Intertech is on the back of the KLEIN MM400. Yes, this has been tested and passed, so you do have that extra level of, well, let's just call it a fuzzy feeling inside, saying this meter has been tested by a third party and it is safe. In the middle of the 12 o'clock, we have our off position. Going to the right, we have volts, AC/DC, frequency and duty cycle, continuity and resistance, capacitance and diode. Moving over to the left, we have our high current, amps, AC/DC, milliamps, AC/DC, up to 500 milliamps, microamps, AC/DC. Finally, temperature in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. Top of the unit, we have our soft touch buttons. Starting at the far left, we have our backlight, followed by the range, max, min, and hold, and finally, the select. High current input, 10 amps on the far left. In the middle, we have our common or ground. Finally, on the right, voltage, resistance, diode, continuity, capacitance, microamps, milliamps, frequency, and temperature. Selector switch is really nicely done. Now, the thing I don't like is you have to get in there and you got to dig again. So, you know, if you got big fingers, it can be a little awkward, but it does have a really nice solid tactile feel to it, and excellent the way it settles on a range. So too bad it's not a little bit bigger, but that being said, it has a very solid tactile feel. Back of the unit as well, we have an optional accessory here. This is for the hanging strap. Unfortunately, KLEIN doesn't include it. Oh, come on, guys. Test leads fit in the back of those holders really nice like that. So you can one-hand it if you want to. You can have a probe extended, and there you go. Now, one thing that I don't like is, unfortunately, you can't really open the back without losing those probes. It gets in the way. Let's turn on that display, and oh wow, that is chunky funky, I gotta say. Oh my. Well, what do you think? I don't know. A little chunky for me. It is bold, but it is also quite small. In fact, let me just pull out my digital caliper. Let's see what we have here in terms of its size. Yeah, so it's around 12 millimeters or so, the height of those LCD display digits. It's small. Let's turn on that backlight. Okay, so we have a blue hue going on. Thank you, Mr. KLEIN. Or is it Mrs. KLEIN? You never know these days. But yeah, all in all, I'd say it's functional, but a little on the small side. and chunky. It's definitely chunky. Let's start off with some DC accuracy. Now, when you turn it to your volts, it does default to AC by default. So to get us into the DC range, just hit that select switch, and we're now in DC volts. 5.00 is what we want. 4.99 is what we get from this 4,000 count little beast. AC volts now should be looking around 120, 119. Coming up is 117.9 AC. Now, this is not a true RMS multimeter, so yeah, take that reading with a slight grain of salt. No root mean square here. Quick AC showdown, sitting at 12.1 volts right now, according to the power supply. And look at that, they're both pretty well spot on. 12.12, 12.10. And up, and away, up to 15.80 volts. 15.8182 for the Fluke, 15.79 for the KLEIN. 26 volts, even Steven, 26.00 for the KLEIN, 26.02 for the Fluke. Look at that, that KLEIN is besting Mr. Fluke. Let's take it up now. Max it out, 32.00 volts, 32.00 for the KLEIN, 32.02 for the Fluke. Awesome, good job, KLEIN. You did better by a couple of counts at least than the Fluke. Excellent. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, we don't have a nice bar graph on the little KLEIN. The display is really just too small, but that is something that is sorely missed. Sitting in high current amps right now, 3.2 amps, and yeah, no worries here. Now, we are maxed out on this Seaglin power supply, so I'm just going to bring that current down. 2.3, 1.70, yeah. Accuracy-wise, the little KLEIN seems to be really, really well calibrated. Okay, so taking it down, sitting now at 400 milliamps. So what I'm going to do now is just take out the test lead and put it into milliamp range. Put it back into the milliamp input, which is on the right. And there we go, 40 milliamps. We're in AC mode. Now we've got to hit the select to bring us into the DC range. And look at that, spot on, 400 milliamps. Now we do have a threshold of 500. Let's just see how exact that is. 450. Oh, we are over. We are over. 400, we're okay. So 400 milliamp is the threshold on this guy. We are in frequency right now, and wow, there's not a whole lot of range here. We're talking 10 hertz to 50 kilohertz. Yeah, that's it. That's also not a lot of room to play with. Sitting at 2 kilohertz right now. Let's take it up to 20 kilohertz. Yeah, no worries there. And let's try 200 kilohertz, and we are over limit. So, yeah, frequency, not that big of a range. Next up, capacitance. No, unfortunately, this only goes up to, get a load of this, 200 microfarad. 200 microfarad. 40 nanofarad to 200 microfarad. But I'm not even going to bother testing this one. Resistance now. 100 ohm Precision Lab resistor, giving us 100.7 according to the KLEIN tool, so that's pretty good. Okay, let's see how fast it is to range in resistance mode. Pretty darn accurate, though, so that's a good thing. Sitting at 1 mega ohm right now with the Decade box. Let's see how fast this is to range. 9 mega ohm, 8 mega ohm, 6 mega ohm. Oh, a little bit of flutter here. Okay, 4 mega ohm, 2 mega ohm, and finally 1 mega ohm. Well, you know, hey, it's certainly accurate, that's for sure. It does take a little while in some of those resistance ranges, but, you know, generally, I'm going to give that about a C+. All right, here we go. Starting off in diode mode. I've got a standard diode here. Let's try that first. Yeah, no worries there. We don't get any nice audible beep, but it is working fine. Okay, diode, here we go. I have no idea how this is going to be. Fingers crossed. Starting off the green LED. There we are with the forward voltage drop. And the yellow, same. Over to the red. Forward voltage drop. As well as illumination. Over to the blue. Oh, nothing. Nothing. And the white. Oh, hang on. Okay, so it worked for the white. It's got to work for... There we go. It was a DU problem. Defective user. All right. Hey, 5 for 5. Look at that. Awesome stuff. Good job, Mr. Klein. Output voltage in diode mode is a nice balmy 3.2 volts. Continuity mode is next. Default probes. 3, 2, 1. Hey, not bad. Loud, latched. Not super loud, but, you know, it's definitely audible. All right, let's try the Probe Masters. Probe Masters, I gotta say, I do love my Probe Masters. These are probably about 5 years old now, and I'm telling you, just work as good as the day they were born, or the day I purchased them. 3, 2, 1. Oh, yeah. A tad louder and definitely latched. Good stuff. .75 dBA maximum volume in continuity. Just showing you the difference in display clarity. Wow, look at that. That's the Anning SZ18 I reviewed not long ago. And just such a nice, verbose, clean, easy to read display. Same size multimeter. Really, same size. Let's just put them together. You know, it's the same size. But wow, just so much easier to read. So, you know, I wish the display was better on the Klein is what I'm trying to say. No ambient temperature sensor. No ambient temperature sensor on the Klein. When it comes to temperature, there is no ambient sensor on the Klein. No, you need your thermocouple if you're going to get any temperature. So to utilize this, just simply insert it like so, and you can see now we have a reading. And whoa, what a reading. 767 degrees. Doesn't make any sense. Hang on. 25.8 degrees Celsius. That definitely makes sense. And let's go back to Fahrenheit. There we go. Well, that was a little glitchy. 75 degrees, 75.7 degrees Fahrenheit. So, yeah, okay, well... I really prefer when there's an ambient sensor on board. Now, of course, you can do whatever you want. You can measure temperature of liquid or flames, what have you. But that little sensor, and you can see it's already going up with my body heat. And yeah, so that works. We're looking at the max min function sitting in volts DC right now at 17.75 volts. Now I'm going to enable the max min. We're sitting in max. It's basically saying at this point that is the highest voltage we have seen thus far. Now I'm going to bring it down a little bit, sitting now at 16.8 volts. You can see it is not going anywhere. I'm going to take it down actually to 16, well, let's just do 15.57 volts. Okay, there we are. Now I'm going to increase it up to 20 volts. And you can see now that we're getting over that threshold, that max threshold, it is increasing. So sitting at 20 volts right now. So hit the min. It's going to show us what our minimum voltage was, 15.5 volts. Definitely a nice feature. It is, I would say, kind of in lieu of that hold feature. The max min is certainly a lot more useful. Speaking of the hold feature, yeah, just hit that button, brings us into hold, and it's nothing more than a standard one-touch hold. Alrighty, here we are on the inside of the meter itself, and yeah, no shielding. Hey, no surprise. Well, you know what? Actually, that is not true. I am slightly surprised, Mr. Klein. Or Mrs. I just can't figure that one out, but I'm going to say Mr. for now. And you know what? Yeah, there should be some shielding on this Klein. But anyway, one thing I've noticed, now we do have some really nice ABS plastics that they've utilized. Nice to see. The sad part is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, and they go into that housing assembly right there. So metal into plastic, never a good idea. And unfortunately, you're going to have to open it up if you have to change any of the fuses. So definitely EC fuse access would have been preferred, or at the very least, they should have brass threaded inserts, metal inserts, so you're not going to strip those threads over time. So not so much forward thinking. Interesting faux pas is the fact that, look at that. What is that? What is that? It's actually a cutout in the PCB, and what that is there for is, you can see the battery prong terminals here. That is what will fit inside of that housing. Now, if you do change a fuse, please take note, caveat emptor, or something like that. You don't want to do what I did and just take those 6 screws out replace the fuse and stick it back, because if you do, this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna turn it on, and let's say we want to go into continuity, and look at that. That's what happens. It basically is totally fudged. Why is it doing that? Well, it's doing that because those prongs are not getting into that battery well properly, and I think it's either causing a short or it is just not getting enough voltage. So what you have to do is you actually have to take the housing off and take the batteries out. Just do that quickly. There's our batteries. Take the batteries out. And you can see the little interesting cutouts that they've used. And once again, I'm not a big fan of this at all. I really don't like this sort of utilization for the battery connection. It's just messy. No, I don't like it. Anyway, take the batteries out, replace your fuse, put it back on. You can see how it just fits in there. Just like so. Nice and clean. Then you put your batteries back in the battery well. Turn it on, and look at that. Yeah, working perfectly. So in case you change your fuses, take out the batteries first. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes, starting off with those input jacks. Oh yeah, beauty. Look at that, nicely done. Oh, I'm telling you, tells a lot about the quality when you look at those inputs, and man, oh man, those are sweet. Yeah, we have those nice cross threads with the jacks, and even on the PCB itself. Look at that. I mean, just nicely done right in that PCB. Speaking of PCB, wow, custom job here. Yeah, they've actually manipulated it to fit right around that common input, so really nicely done, KLEIN. And look at that. Wow, what do you notice? It looks like a gas discharge tube, doesn't it? But it's not. No, that is actually a PTC. That's a glass encapsulated thermistor. You don't see those all the time, so awesome. Those are basically hermetically sealed in glass, hence the fact they look like a diode, but it's actually an encapsulated thermistor, so excellent. That is on the high current side. Nice big chunky current shunt as well. 0.2 of an ohm is what it's measuring, and it's in there nice and solid. Look at those fuses as well. We got two fuses. One of them is a 31 by 8 6 by 3 millimeter 10 amp 600 volt ASTM ceramic fuse. And on the milliamp side, we have a smaller 5 by 20 ASTM ceramic fuse as well, also rated at 600 volts, so really nice to see. Now, once again, too bad, if you have to change these, you got to undo all those darn screws, so that's a bit of a drag. Also at the bottom there, we have a nice diode clamp going on, and let's bring it up a little bit here. Oh, look at that, shall we? We have an IC that is not actually cobbed. Whoa, the DM1106EN, and if memory serves me correctly, that is a rebranded Hycontech HY12P66 tried and true IC. That little EEPROM at the top, that's a 24L-C02B serial EEPROM from Microchip. Finally, we have our battery connectors over here. A little bizarre looking the way they are, but they're soldered in there super well, so not going anywhere. And there's our piezo and the tin can oscillator. At the top here, we have some factory programmable headers as well, both for the IC and the EEPROM. Okay, I'm going to take it apart a little bit further, see what's on the other side. Okay, we're going to flip this over now, and oh yeah, there we go. Oh my, look at that. Look at that. We have another PTC on the opposite side of the PCB. Excellent. So not one, but two PTCs. This is a standard style variant, nothing untoward here, but really nice to see two of them. And hey, do you notice that? Look at that. Oh yeah, that looks like grease, probably dielectric of some sort right on those tracks. So great stuff, KLEIN. Good to see your grease in the tracks. These are the soft touch buttons. You can tell they got the nice long rubber inlays, and that's what makes contact with those headers on the PCB. And there is the elastomer. Wow, that is slightly different the way they have it on there, isn't it? That is what feeds the display itself. Very, very interesting. And of course, here is the other back end. Finally, on the opposite side, wow, look at, again, those inputs are better than that. And there is that selector switch. Once again, that is really nicely greased. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 track pads. That's what makes contact with the rotary selector switch itself. And yeah, you can see that can just come off ever so gently. And there we are with our 2 ball bearings down there. So this is the good old mechanical style rotary selector switch. Excellent. Alrighty, gonna put it all back together. Come back with my closing thoughts. Closing thoughts on the KLEIN Tools MM400 multimeter. Oh, you know what? It ain't bad. It ain't bad. It ain't great, but it certainly isn't bad. Started on that fuse axis. Wow, why is it so cumbersome? Screws that aren't even going into a metal insert. You know, it's just crazy. So, and you saw what happens if you don't take out the batteries. It just acts funky. So, oh, why is it so difficult to change a fuse? Also, that chunky display, really small, tiny. Oh yeah, you know, it might be bold, but in this case, it certainly isn't beautiful. Now, KLEIN, you definitely could improve the display on this one. And the range is definitely, some of them, oh, that horrible 200 microfarad capacitance range. What is this? It's 2021. It's not all bad. No, there's some pretty good points, actually. This is one solid, well-made meter. It's certainly robust, has decent input protection, and yeah, it's no fluke, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's pretty darn good for the price. Love the rotary selector switch on this. Super tactile, has really nice control. I don't like the fact that you have to pinch your fingers to change the switch. Certainly be hard to do, especially if you have gloves on. And you know what? This is the type of meter that's geared towards professionals, outdoors, what have you. So no IP rating, but I can certainly see people taking this outside in the rough and tough of it just because it is a KLEIN. So I just wish that selector was easier to grip. Nonetheless, it's got some great features, Intertech rating, third-party certification, and it is an accurate little multimeter. And you know what? At the end of the day, I think you could do a lot worse. The KLEIN Tools MM400 gets a solid 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, good old KLEIN does it again. Hey, you know, these are super popular on the channel. I cannot get over how many searches I keep seeing for KLEIN multimeters. Wow, people really love this brand. So hey, thanks for watching this review. Everybody, to the next one, keep on testing.